The linguistic meaning of Eid is that which returns frequently. So the reason Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr is called Eid is because it comes every year. That's the linguistic meaning of Eid. If that is what is interpreted in terms of coming together for a celebration, then something that comes every year, the time that we remember the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it comes every year. It's not a Eid that comes after Ramadan or Eid that comes during the days of Hajj, no, but linguistically, yes. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ بِفَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَبِرَحْمَتِهِ فَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا. Say, by the bounty of Allah and the rahmah of Allah, in that let them rejoice and celebrate. فَلْيَفْرَحُوا فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ مِمَّا يَجْمَعُونَ. It is better, meaning for them to rejoice in these two, is better than that which they amass, meaning of amass of the wealth of the world. So in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions two things to celebrate in the Quran, in the ayah. The fadl, bounty of Allah, and His rahmah. And of course, we can't find any rahmah greater than Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. For Allah mentions him in the Quran as well. You are rahmah, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. So the Quran itself establishes the legislative proof and evidence for those that are unaware that Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is one to also celebrate and to rejoice. And in fact, the day of his birth, Allah Ta'ala mentions two other prophets in the Quran that celebrate the day of their birth. The first is Sayyidina Yahya alayhi salam, and the second is Sayyidina Isa. Salamun alayya yawma wulidtu wa yawma amutu wa yawma ub'athu hayya. Peace be upon me the day I was born. What? What's the importance? What's the significance? Any day. Someone says, no, he said the day I was born. And so therefore, by extension, Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's maqam and stature is greater than Nabi Isa alayhi salam. So if Nabi Isa refers to the significance of the day of his birth, then Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's day of birth is even, or not of birth is even more significant. And there are so many other ways in which we can continue to establish the proof and evidence of the celebration of the day of the birth of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And it's only in this last generation, maybe 50 years, 70 years, 100 years, that the Ummah has gotten a bit confused because of certain groups that go around and say that just because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam didn't do Mawlid and didn't gather on the 12th day of Rabi al-Awal to celebrate his birth, they say this is therefore innovation, it is bid'ah, it is haram, and then some will go, maybe this leads to shirk and so on. But the first thing that we say is, get me one ayah of the Quran, or get me one hadith, sahih, hasan, or even da'if will take, a weak hadith that prohibits a Muslim from celebrating the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Give me one hadith and I'll give in to you. One hadith or one ayah. We'll give in. We'll tell you, okay, we agree with you. But there isn't. There's no ayah and there's no hadith. It's just their interpretation, because they say, what? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't do it, therefore it's an innovation, bid'ah. If you're going to take that logic, because that logic itself goes against the usul of the Sharia, because there is a science, this is perhaps more technical, there is a science called usul al-fiqh, the foundations of jurisprudence. And according to the usuli scholars, at-tarku, the leaving of an action, laysa dalilan ala tahrim, is not a proof and evidence for its prohibition. But that's what some people are saying. Because the Prophet didn't do it, therefore it's haram. Where did you get that from? This couldn't be further from the truth. If you take one thing, for instance, the Quran, the Mus'haf, when you read the Quran, usually you put Mus'haf in the little desk, isn't it? Those foldable desks or little chairs, right? Now, where's this? This was never in Medina. This was never with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Sahaba never did it. Abu Bakr never did it. Umar never did it. There's no such thing as this little stand for the Quran. In fact, the Quran is a manuscript. Didn't exist in the time of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It didn't exist in the initial time of the Khilaf of Sayyidina Abu Bakr. So if you're going to come, someone's going to come and says, the Prophet didn't do it, therefore it is haram, then we say that Mus'haf that you're holding right now, Prophet didn't do it, therefore it's haram. But of course this doesn't work. So this is just in order for us to understand with knowledge, we have the ability to be able to respond to those who spread misinformation.